Hi everyone, my name's Jack and I have a 1992 Mazda Rx7 and it seems like the engine's had it. Well, it's not entirely true. It seems that the coolant seal has gone in the engine. This is something that I've suspected for quite a few years now. Ever since it had its second rebuild, it's never been right. The coolant system has always pressured to a certain amount and there's always spat coolant out, and there's always been a bit of air getting into the coolant system and some smoke from the exhaust. All telltale signs that there's something wrong with the coolant seal. This was an issue that I brought up with the person that built the engine several times, and I'm not going to mention who they were, but I was fobbed off, told it was everything but that, and now basically I've decided that that's what it is, so the engine's out and being stripped apart. The tests you normally carry out to ascertain if you've got a coolant seal failure or indeed a head gasket seal failure in a piston engine would be to test for hydrocarbons in your coolant, which means you've got exhaust gas coming into the coolant. That's done by using a hydrocarbon test or a sniff test, which is basically a funnel that goes onto your radiator or your coolant filler. It has a liquid in it which will change colour if there's exhaust gas coming in. So you create a vacuum on the top with a pump, and then any gases within that will travel through the liquid, which then changes colour. I actually went to a local garage to try and do this. He was really helpful, the bloke, and we put that on, and unfortunately my car was so bad that it just spat all the coolant straight through this fluid and used up all of the fluid in the garage. We tried it, I think, about 4 or 5 times, and yeah, the poor bloke, he was really nice to me and didn't even charge me any money. But the other way, obviously, you're looking for white smoke, which is water going through the engine. Pretty much always white smoke, a sweet smell, the smell of coolant in your exhaust. And then the other thing you can do is use one of these. I bought this from eBay, and this is how you conduct the champagne test. There's loads of videos online of how to do it, loads of advice on how to do it, but I think, yeah, I got this from eBay, and the idea being that using these little connectors and things, you stick that onto the coolant filler, and with some coolant in here you can then see the bubbles coming up and see if there's air or coolant or whatever coming through. There is basically a hydrocarbons test in here as well. It's the same kind of fluid that changes colour, but yeah, it didn't work because it just filled that up with coolant. Anyway, I'll roll the footage of me testing the engine, the car, and we'll see where we go from there. Fucking batteries for that. Engine's now been running for just over 5 minutes. Smoke smoke's cleared, but just a touch coming out of it now. It's left this wet patch. Just about 10 minutes, and there's just a touch of smoke. If we now jump forward in time, quite a long way, I'll show you an image of the engine once I got it broken down, and one of the places that the coolant seal had failed. Unfortunately, it also turned out that these weren't the OEM Mazda seals that I'd paid the extra for. People absolutely love to have a go at these engines, from the schoolboy giggle they get when they realise it's called a wankle, or saying that, you know, they only last 2 minutes, they're fragile, they're thirsty, they're whatever it might be. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. I do not believe for one moment that these engines are fragile or that there's anything wrong with the engine itself. There are countless cars that will do, and I'm talking about a 13B engine, so that's a 2-rotor engine. There are countless cars that will do 6 seconds down the quarter mile, make well over 1,000 horsepower on these engines. And as I've found out, you'll pretty much always find that it's not really the engine at fault. It's whoever's touched the engine and whatever they've done to it, haven't done to it, that kind of thing. And then you'll all say, oh, Jack, but yeah, you know, you're on your 3rd engine now and you've had it blow up and do this. And yeah, well, that's quite true. So when I first bought the car, the engine was fine. It had done, I think, about 50,000 miles, but that was a mixture of miles and kilometres because the car had been imported, so it's kind of hard to say exactly how many it had done. And I drove the car around and it felt pretty strong and it pulled on both the sequential turbos. And then, as I said in my previous video, it overheated. I was then told by this so-called specialist that it needed to go for a rebuild. And knowing all of the reputation that these engines have from these people, they say, oh, they need to be rebuilt after, 5 minutes. So I went along with this. And I was asking about tuning options, that kind of thing, and was told that all of that was a bad idea. And so I paid this guy to do an engine rebuild on it, which was a stock rebuild. Of course, I drove the car there, and on the way there, it was absolutely fine, and it seemed to pull well. Anyway, I had this rebuild. Latterly, it turned out that actually, I don't really think it needed that rebuild, and the reason it had overheated is because it had the wrong cap on the coolant filler, which was allowing the coolant to bypass the cap, go into the AST or the air separation, and then and into the overflow. So the car was losing coolant whilst I was driving it enthusiastically. So anyway, it had this rebuild, and when I got the car back, I kind of looked at it and realised that he'd painted the engine and there was sealant all round it. And anyway, I figured, apparently this guy is the specialist and must know what he's doing. So, as I said in the previous video, a while afterwards, I think the engine was just out of its warranty, and I was giving it some enthusiastic driving from a roundabout, and one of the apex seals broke. There was a bit of a bang, and then the car, instead of getting that bah sort of sound when you're idling with a stock port, you get this bah. Anyway, it's blah 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 blah, and then when you put your foot on the gas when you're pulling away, it sounded more like a Subaru. Brrr. So there was a clear misfire, a clear loss in compression. So the second person that rebuilt the engine, I'd lost all faith in this first person. So the second person that rebuilt the engine then was more willing to do modifications. So they conducted a street port on the engine, and I said I wanted it rebuilt with all OEM Mazda seals, you know, which was a more expensive option. And that's what happened, and it had a non-sequential twin turbo conversion. So there's two same twin turbos, but now running both together as if they were a single. And it used coolant. And so, like I say, we went through all this, and I was fobbed off until the warranty had run out on that engine. So here we are, and I've done my own test, and I've decided that I don't trust any of them anymore, so I'm rebuilding my own engine. Thank you very much for making it all the way to the end of this video. I'm really sorry if I've bored the hell out of you. If you want to know technical stuff, I mean, I'm by no means any kind of expert. I'm just trying to work this stuff out as I go along. If you like that kind of technical stuff, let me know. Please do leave a comment. If this is really boring and you just want to see me do a burnout, you know, fine. Or if you want to see me work on the car or whatever you want, just let me know, because I'm kind of going into this blind, and any kind of help that you give me is nice, because after all, I want you guys to watch it and enjoy it. So thanks very much, and that's it for this one, and I'll see you on the next one. Maybe we'll do one about drifting or pulling the engine out, or I don't know, whatever you want. Cheers.